Tonight, part 2 with comic Ron James talking hair-stealing aliens, unhappy comedians getting knighted by Don Rickles, James Hong, Sid Caesar, the friendly giant, and steelhead trout. We like to mix it up around here occasionally. Hit that subscribe button. It's Up All Night with Bob.
Now here's the deep cut. I think you may be surprised I've even seen this, but I have a kind of a cult fascination with this. The Rocket Boy.
Oh boy, with Dave Thomas.
Yeah, with Dave Thomas. Tell me a little bit about how this happened.
Jesus, Rob, man.
I know it's a deep cut, but I
thought you were going to be talking about my career, not my failures. Anyway,
I love it. Listen, I think it's hilarious. I think it's.
Well, I'll tell you who that was written by.
I love it.
That was written by two of the greatest comedy writers in Los Angeles, Tom Gamble and Max Pross.
You're kidding? Gamble and Pross wrote that?
Absolutely.
I did not know that. I've met those guys.
Absolutely, they did.
I've met those guys. So
are they still a writing team?
I think they may be. Is it Max or Tom who's extremely tall with the voice?
Tom.
That's Tom, yeah.
But created the first Gary Shandling show.
Yeah.
Went on to co-created that with him. Went on to write for Everyone and Anyone. Co-wrote that with Dave. And premise was that Hawkhead was stealing the hair from people on Earth.
That's right.
It was just so crazy. And people down here, when I come home, they said, "We saw that stupid show you were in." I said, "It was genius." I said, "It was written by Tom Gamble and Max Pross, starring Dave Thomas. It was stupid. Whoever loses their hair." I said, "Well, that's the whole thing." The hair was floating up. And
Wow, what is all this?
It's like a giant hair storm. Hey, buddy, I think it's coming from Earth.
Isn't that Billy Kuchar's hair?
Who?
Billy Kuchar, the kid from the high school basketball team.
Oh, yeah. Hey, look, he still parts his hair down the middle. What a jerk.
And then I remember the Japanese toy makers came in one day to take measurements of the rocket ship, and Tom and Max were saying, "Hey, man, you're going to be on a lunchbox in Japan." I thought, "Oh, cool." Yeah, so that was a pilot that never went. And
right. So that was the idea. That was to be a pilot for a series. That was the idea initially, right?
Yeah, that was a pilot for a series. Yeah. But go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say it's very self-referential in that way, because when you're introduced to Mr. Pym, who is the sort of Chewbacca-like character. He's here for the merchandising potential.
Yeah. Well, Wiseman, we were just talking. We thought we might do a better job without Mr. Pym.
Without Mr. Pym?
Yeah, well, it seems like last time he came along, he was really kind of useless.
Failure was yours, Rocket Boy, for not properly exploiting the powers of Mr. Pym. He sees all and knows all. And the merchandising potential is unlimited.
I forget who else was in there. There was a guy who.
Well, James Hong is in it, and that's partly.
That's right, James Hong from Chinatown.
I just saw the great James Hong being interviewed on CBS this morning a couple of weeks ago. 90-something years old now, still kicking, and so funny and silly. That, do you remember any memories of working with him in that?
Yeah, he was very specific about not. Disparaging his people with the kind of character he was playing.
Right.
Very specific about that.
Yeah.
And I used to. I would try to quiz him about Chinatown. Try to talk to him about Chinatown.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because he was the opium dealer, right? He was the opium guy that was shooting up Faye Dunaway's daughter.
Right.
That Faye Dunaway's daughter.
Oh, yeah, sister, doctor. Yeah, an unbelievable career going back all the way to the 50s. And at the time, I knew him probably best because of Big Trouble in Little China, which had come out a couple of years earlier.
When you talk about these days of the early days, the deep cuts of these things that occurred, and some shows always win, and the opportunities that seemed so promising that never came to fruition.
Yeah.
I mean, like SCTV, you're being groomed, looking forward to that. The pilot, looking forward to that. And then, boom, for years, you're scrambling in Canada as an actor, doing commercials, the occasional guest spot when they used to do sitcoms.
Yeah.
And only now am I beginning to, thanks to the stand-up in the road, am I beginning to not place all kinds of emphasis on hope on each gig that it will evolve into a long-running show. Right. I just do the work and I love the work. I did a great little series called Trapped that John Doyle in the Globe and Mail, Cranky John Doyle, gave great reviews to, that Nathan McIntosh wrote and Jonathan Torrance directed.
Right.
Got a great review for that. It's, as I say to people, I said I was paid in $17 and a bag of smelts. But it was fun. It was fun, and it's smart, and it's subversive and bright. I've got my own little show that's coming here in the fall called One Man's Treasure that I'll be shooting, and I'm working with a great young writer by the name of Thomas Conroy, and we're going to be shooting that with Lynn Harvey down here in Nova Scotia. And what gave me the foundation to relax and enjoy the work was the road and the stand-up. Everything comes from that. And I didn't look at stand-up as a means to an end.
Right.
I looked at it as a simple calling. It's where I'm the happiest. It's where I feel fulfilled, and it's where I can channel the life force.
Because we're getting too much information, and most of that information is useless. The 24-hour news cycle is so used to filling time with manufactured news content, they no longer have the resources to report the real news content. Because they're too busy producing the made-up news content, they need to meet the content demands of 24-hour news. If you're on the news channel and tweets are rolling by at the bottom of the screen, since when did the headlines require backup? Get rid of the tweets. If there's been a chemical spill, I want to hear what a chemical engineer has to say about it, not Patty from Truro.
And once you get past, oh, will Just for Laughs like me? Will I do okay there? You play Just for Laughs half a dozen times and you go, okay. You do all the festivals. And I did my 9 specials, which I was very proud of. We got 1.4 million viewers the last 3 out of 4 specials on New Year's Eve in Canada. Very proud of that. Lynn Harvey did beautiful work in terms of production. Worked with great writers, Pete Zedlacker, Paul Pogue, and Scott Montgomery. And I enjoyed the process, and I began to feel so comfortable in my own skin on stage with what we'd produced and created together that I stopped worrying so much about who would validate me as an actor.
Right.
Because the audience and my colleagues validated me as a comedian.
Right.
And you're given the opportunity to line up the planets and make sense of the chaos we're all walking through in the language of laughs. Particularly after these last 2 years of COVID, people say it to me all the time. Thanks for letting me process the trauma of the last few years by sitting here laughing.
Right.
It's so important. I don't want to sound maudlin about it. And
No,
like I
but
said, new agey, but it's just so simple. Just laugh, man.
Yeah, no, and the communal experience of being in a group, in a room full of people experiencing that at the same time, and I think that that's the key. Whether it's stand up or whatever it is you're doing, if you're not looking at it as a means to an end, but an end in itself, it just tweaks your perspective so much. And you talk in the book about how JFL, at one point was always like, well, you have a good set at JFL, you get a sitcom, like it was 1993 and Brett Butler or whoever it was, but I can remember, in Seinfeld, if you've ever seen Seinfeld's Comedian, the documentary.
I loved it.
And it's so great. Orny Adams is, to me, the perfect example in that movie and in real life of somebody who, and maybe he's matured and hopefully he has by this point.
The hungry, young, whiny comedian who's not famous yet.
Yeah, who's just determined that if this doesn't lead somewhere, then it's all for naught. And
I love when Seinfeld says to him at the bar, but you're doing what you love, aren't you? Aren't you doing what you love?
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
Boy, is time running out? You out of time? I'm getting older. Please. I'm getting older. It's not, you can, listen, I'm 29. I feel like I've sacrificed so much of my life. The last 3 years. You got something else you would rather have been doing? Not other appointments or other places you got to be? Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. I still
Doing what you love. And you know what? Coming back from those 3 years in Los Angeles to Canada taught me, chasing the American dream inspired my Canadian one. And I just love the work.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean,
That's it.
sure, if I was at this level in America, I'd have more money. But you know what? That Nova Scotia sea breeze behind me,
Listen, you have all my envy in the world right now, especially
you and your wife are welcome anytime, buddy.
I'd love to come out. But you know what's sad about, not to knock Orny, who can be a very funny stand-up, but 10 or 12 years later, I met him I spent some time with him at JFL, and he hadn't changed. He was just as bitter as he ever was, and he was working steadily at the time. I think he was on Teen Wolf series playing the coach. He had a steady gig, and he was just unhappy, just an unhappy guy. And I only feel comfortable saying this because at one point I said, Orny, let me buy you a drink. We were at the bar at the hotel there in Montreal. And he said, sure, I'll have a Patron. I was like, oh yeah, I'd be happy to buy you a $30 glass of tequila.
But JFL is, I talk about it in the book. It's where you get to, it's where you get to see your heroes. And I remember that night with Don Rickles when he laughed at he was the host of our gala. And I used to do that bit in the old days of camping's fun in the daytime, but as soon as the sun goes down, everything that eats meat wakes up. I was pretty safe. I sat beside some Germans. God bless them with their accent, will scare anything. Ich bin lieber der Außen uns, lieber nicht schnell. Ach, von der Rausch nach aus des Lieben, ich bin lieber. And they were only trying to set the friggin' tent up. Anyway, it goes on. I come backstage, and Lauren, who ran the Rivoli, said, man, Rickles is killing himself. I said, what? And Rickles comes over and he grabs me by the face. I shit you not. Grabs me by the face. He said, that was a great set. I couldn't believe it. That was a great set, kid. Ha, 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 ha. He's laughing. And he says, I never got my first break till I was 40 years old on Kelly's Heroes. He says, how old are you? He's smiling. I said, 43. His laugh in his face metastasizes into the kind of frown you'd have talking to a widow in front of her husband's closed casket. He slaps me in the face and says, you're finished. And he walked away. I fucking died. But I went to his dressing room and he was sitting there with the tux undone. I wanted to get, and Frank Sinatra's stage manager, this little short guy, shorter than me, says, come on down, I'll take it. Come on down. I'm Frank's stage manager. I thought, really? Anyway, we go down, big bodyguard out front. We go in. There's 4 carcinogenically tanned gangsters against the back wall smoking cigarettes. Rickles is sitting there by himself in a chair with 2 high balls of ice water, 2 steamer trunks beside him, and his tuxedo opened. And I said, just sign this, Mr. Rickles. And he signs the poster and he says, funny is as funny does, and you are. Thank you very much. I still have the poster. 6 months later, I'm stuck in a blizzard, a Yeti wouldn't wander, on my way to a gig in Prince George with on a Wednesday night in February. My wipers aren't working in the car.
Oh my God.
My fluid is frozen solid as Frankenstein's skull, and transfer trucks are coming out of that blizzard on my side of the road. And I remember that. And that's the soul's collateral you take with you on the road.
Right.
That lets you know you took the right one to travel.
Knighted by the king. Yeah, that's tremendous. I saw him only at the very end there in the last time he did JFL, which was like probably within a year of his death. But I looked down, and there in this wheelchair was backstage was Don Rickles, and pretty frail at this time. He was getting small, and he stayed in that chair right up until the very last second. He had a line of dancing girls, and they kind of split, and so because I was backstage and I saw, and you see him literally just get out of that chair at the very last second as the line of girls change, and comes out, and he killed, and he was doing
honest stuff. To God, he killed.
He killed.
Are you Jews? How'd you get those seats? What's your last name, Dad? Witzel. Oh, with them, Mitchell. Yeah. Good to see you. Remember the old days, Mitchell?
Myers used to tell this story about Sid Caesar at the Friars Roast years ago. Sid Caesar is also in the wheelchair. His assistant is dealing with him, and poor old Sid's actually drooling. She pushes him up to the stage. She helps him up on the stage. The light hits him, and he kills. He did his pidgin French. He did his shtick from the show of shows. And that's it, bro. I mean, we're in the game. Look, we're in the calling for the joy of it.
Chicken or fish?
Fish.
I had a feeling you'd be in trouble if you didn't. Cod? What's your fish? Can you say, it has to be cod, doesn't it?
Steelhead.
Steelhead. Okay. Oh, steelhead.
I can buy that at the St. Lawrence Market in Toronto.
Do you still, number 2, do you still have a landline in your phone, in your home?
No.
No landline. Number 3, Mr. Dress Up or Friendly Giant?
Friendly Giant, hands down.
100%.
That was my generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even mine too. He was
Buddy had a talking giraffe and a rooster that was nailed to the wall in a bag, and they wonder why my generation did hallucinogenic drugs. It's just a given.
Number 4, Knowlton Nash or Peter Mansbridge?
Knowlton.
Here's one for you. Number 6, you grew up in Halifax. Were you ever in the audience for a taping of Don Messer's Jubilee?
Evening, Charlie Richards. Away they go with St. Anne's Reel.
I was not, and I wish I had it. I had a dream of being on the show, playing the spoons as a kid, but I wasn't good enough. So there you go. I still remember the song, though. That was my first impression. The blind guy who played guitar on Don Messer. I laid around.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah, he played it on his lap, and he was always smiling. I laid around and played around this old town too long.
That's amazing.
And I had the hots for Debbie Laurie. Oh, no, she was on Tommy Hunter, Debbie Laurie Kay.
Oh, yeah. Tommy Hunter, they shot out in Toronto near me, actually, because I grew up in Scarborough. I think they shot that out at the old CFTO studio, which is the same place Deb McGrath shot Bizarre with John Biner.
Yes, indeed. That's where they shot that. Yeah.
First car you ever bought?
First car?
Yeah.
First car I ever bought was I'll tell you, it was a Rabbit convertible in 1985.
Oh, okay. Oh, the Rabbit.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
We lived in Cabbagetown at the time, and someone said, leave your hood down so people won't put a knife through the top to try to go through your glove compartment. Okay?
Right.
We lived on Berkeley Street in Cabbagetown.
Yeah.
And I came out in the yard one day, the backyard, by Parliament Street, and there were 2 rummies in the car. 2 rummies in the car. And one of them had a Mr. T doll that you'd pull the string and Mr. T would say, "Stay in school, fool." I kid you not. Honest to God. Honest to God. Yeah.
He had Tim Long was here. He's a writer on The Simpsons, a good friend of mine. He was recording Mr. T one day for a Simpsons episode, probably, Tim's been on the show 20 some odd years now. This is probably about 15 years ago. And he got to talking to T about a bunch of stuff. And he said, I love, he goes, of course he asked him something about Rocky 3. And he goes, I took a dive in that movie. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, what happened was I needed money for my mother was in the hospital, blah, and so they paid me to take a dive. That's why I lose at the end of the movie. And Tim says, I don't remember that. And he goes, scenes you don't see. And what he meant was he had made up this backstory in his head just to justify his losing at the end of Rocky 3.
Wow.
And I just thought that was fantastic. Yeah. Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Butter or margarine?
Butter.
If you absolutely had to live in the U.S. tomorrow, where would you choose?
Vermont.
Oh, that's a good choice. When's the last time you got a speeding ticket?
Just before COVID in Manitoba. And no, Peterborough in the wintertime.
Oh.
I was coming back. I said, I'm going to drive back to Toronto. And I was friggin' hungry. There was no place to eat.
Yeah.
And I got dinged.
Who's your favorite Canadian stand-up that isn't you? I know you don't want to hurt anybody's.
No. Yeah, you know what? And I'm not just saying this too because I've been on bills with him, but I'd have to say Ryan Belleville.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's good to know.
I've shared bills with Ryan, and he's always killed. Yeah, he's excellent.
You ordered
yogurt while they eat bacon and eggs? No, this is really what I wanted to eat. I didn't want that. I wanted this because it's so good.
Do you think
Put it through
Anecdote is
now.
funnier than Airplane?
Yes.
Oh, really?
I think it is.
I'm not sure.
I think
He's a lovely guy. Also, one of the only people I've ever seen in the world who can do a reasonable Ron James impression.
He does not.
Oh, you've seen? I think I saw him do a second of it for you once, and we were hanging out in the hallway in Montreal. But he does do it pretty good. He does a pretty good
Fantastic.
Ron James.
Does
So
one,
next time
Rich does one too. That's fantastic.
Favorite Canadian movie? Do you have one?
Right now, the most unique one that I can remember, and I'm not trying to get all cinema on you, but At Tenarjuat was really cool. It was an Inuit film that was made. It was
The Fast Runner. I've seen it.
Yeah, it was excellent. I really like that one.
Yeah, both of these names have come up, and so here we go. Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton? And I think
Buster Keaton.
Yeah, and here's the other one: Don Knotts or Jerry Lewis?
I got to go with Don Knotts just because of the Ghost and Mr. Chicken.
I mean, ta-da. And also, I ask that of everybody. That's the one consistent question, and nobody to this date has said Jerry Lewis. They may know I'm biased because I'm such a big Don Knotts fan, but that's interesting.
Have you ever seen Don Lake's impression of Don Knotts?
No, but I would love to.
You have to get Donnie on your show.
In fact, I'd love to have Don here sometime if he's available. Best hotel chain to stay in?
The Marriott. That used to be the Delta.
Okay. Worst hotel you ever stayed in?
Oh, Jesus, some motel Shag and Shack around the tip of Lake Superior where the fucking smoke alarm was a dead canary in a cage. I got a joke out of that. They had complimentary coffee. I took one sip and thought, if this coffee's a compliment, my wake-up call must be a kick in the nuts.
That's a good joke. But Ron, I cannot thank you enough for taking some time to do this with us today.
I'm honored to be asked, bro.
It was a real pleasure, and I hope so. The next tour starts when?
Late October. My first gig is in Manitoba, and I've got 18 dates across the West. And by the way, behind me you will see caribou antlers that I found in the tundra after a gig in Hay River, which was a supply point during the days of the fur trade. And so I said, well, how many times do you get up to do a gig in Hay River for everybody across the north, from people from Nunavut, the Yukon, and Northwest Territories were there. So I went out in the tundra and I found those, and here they are now.
There you go.
Yeah. So who said there were no perks in Canadian showbiz? A liar. Mind you, you have to go north of the tree line to find them. So
well, that's true too. And all over the map, is still out in hardcover, and I assume maybe
still out in hardcover, and it was a bestseller, instant bestseller. And I was proud to be on the 10 list to make the final 10 for the Stephen Leacock Award. And, it's a love letter to the people and places that I'm from and that I've seen, and the windows on the world I was given by strangers I met on the road taken. Yeah. And during COVID, when I was writing it, and with the changes that came afterwards, first of all, it gave me a light to follow at the end of the long, dark tunnel of COVID. And then to have a bit of a melancholy, nostalgic note for the way we spoke to each other in this country. And for the most part, it's still the same, it's still the same. Yeah. I had have to get my septic tank pumped here in my cottage in Nova Scotia. And the guy that came in the driveway yesterday, he said, "Ronnie, give me a De Niro." So I went, "You're going to pump my septic tank? You're going to pump it? You want to pump it? Give me a deal." Anyway, it's sweet. And I love touring, and I'll be doing it until someone pulls me out of the wheelchair, I think, and pushes me on stage.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get you the line of dancing girls by that point, and you'll be
Yeah, that'd be good.
you'll be set.
Yeah, I'll bring them from the home. We'll all be roaming the home in our Led Zeppelin onesie just to sing along the way from taking a stairway to heaven. So, fuck.
That's right. Well, I look forward to seeing you again in person someday soon. And
thank you, buddy.
Thanks very much, and good luck in the fall.
All the best down there.
Thank you.
Thanks, pal.
Hey now, thanks for watching. Next week, actor Sujith Varghese will be here from Kin's Convenience and Transplant. We had a great chat. You're not going to want to miss that. Please do hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment, turn on notifications, do whatever it is people tell you to do at the end of videos. I'm just an old guy. What would I know? Thanks for watching. Good night, everybody.